Hello everyone, my name is Ray Bowman and this is my week 4 presentation for MPA 590, Organizational Theory for Public Administration. This week I'll discuss a few concepts from chapters 9 through 11, and with each topic I'll provide a peer-reviewed article that expands on the concept at hand. And with that, let's go ahead and get started. So the first theorist that I'm covering is Chester Barnard, who is notably known for his work, The Functions of the Executive. Barnard's work is quite a contrast from classical rational systems perspectives that we know from Max Weber and Frederick Taylor. Rational system theories viewed organizations as mechanisms, but Barnard argued that it was a cooperative system instead. He distinguished between material inducements like benefits and pay and non-material inducements such as status, purpose, and belonging. He also argued that non-material inducements were superior and that functions of the executive was to indoctrinate lower-level staff to encourage cohesiveness. The peer-reviewed article that I found was from Business Strategy, and in this article, the writer argues that Chester Barnard was a modern man of his time in that he didn't see the role of the executive as merely systematic, but as a role that nurtures the values and goals of the organization. The executive role, according to this article, can bring morality into the organization. The next theorist that I'll be covering is Robert Merton's structural functional theory. Merton's theory builds off of Max Weber's theory of bureaucracy and starts to kind of pick it apart. Merton talks about bureaucracy's pitfalls or dysfunction and that it can cause rigidity or trained incapacity. And I included a quote here by Abraham Kaplan that says, "The price of training is always a certain trained incapacity. The more we know how to do something, the harder it is to learn to do it differently." And that's a good way to put Merton's trained incapacity. And the peer-reviewed article that I found was from the American Journal of Political Science that essentially expanded on Merton's argument that certain personality traits can actually make people prefer strict rules and regulations or bureaucratic processes. So classic theories assume that public agencies might attract more bureaucratic personalities than private companies. However, this peer-reviewed article actually made a surprising find. Contrary to what some might believe, private sector managers actually wanted more rules than public sector managers. And lastly is general systems theory. One of the early proponents of systems theory was Ludwig von Bertalanffy. He developed general systems theory, which is the idea that organizations can be understood as a system that interacts with its environment. Kotz and Kahn applied general systems theory directly to organizations. So instead of seeing organizations as closed machines, Kotz and Kahn argued that organizations are open systems that require inputs or resources, that they have throughputs or processes, that they generate outputs, and that they need constant feedback loops to adapt, learn, and survive, which leads to this concept of cybernetics, which is the process of trying and changing and acting, reevaluating, self-assessing, self-correcting, something that intelligent systems do. And this concept was popularized by Norbert Wiener. And the peer-reviewed article that I found is from Systems Research and Behavioral Science, and it was actually quite interesting. It was a study on the cybernetic crisis management focused on the country of Switzerland and their COVID-19 response. So Switzerland's restrictions were actually much lighter than its neighboring countries, and the federal government left its municipalities to essentially act on their own unless the national government was needed. So there were no curfews, less travel restrictions, and kind of a big emphasis on personal responsibility. The surprising thing was that Switzerland's death rate at the time for COVID was better than the European average. The economy stayed strong and it also recovered quickly. And one of the big reasons that this worked was that most Swiss citizens adapted their behavior voluntarily. They had built this habit of civic responsibility and trust that helped encourage responsible behavior that curbed the impacts of the pandemic. So I thought that was quite interesting. And with that, I'd like to thank you for your time. I look forward to your feedback and your presentations. Have a great day.